So, hello everyone. Welcome to this free webinar about how to teach chess on internet. My name is Jesper Hall, and I have with me Job Delamer. Hello, Job.
Hi, good morning.
So, let us start immediately. First of all, we are now into Zoom, and this is a program that can be used for this type of conferences, webinars, seminars. And I am in charge as the host, and that means the panelist. If you're in the chat, you can say that you can write to either the panelist or the panelist and the attendees, and you are the attendees. So you can ask questions as we go in the chat. We will be doing it like this, that you will be muted during this webinar, and instead you can write your questions inside the chat, and Job and I will take a look at it, and we will try to answer it as we go, or not the least in the very end of this webinar, when we will have like this kind of sharing of experience that we have. This webinar will be recorded and may be used for other trainers or coaches that want to take a look at what we have done today. But you should know that no one of you will be seen during this recording, and your questions will not be seen as well. So you don't have to worry about that. And when you ask questions, Job and I will pick them up, and we will tell the question and to start to discuss them among each other.
Yeah, just to make it a little bit interactive and easier. And I think it's very important also in this kind of webinars is that ask a lot of questions is all new for us. It's always, I think it's an interesting time also for chess to see how we can make things more digital. And therefore, I hope that you really will ask the questions which you feel need to make your, well, also living and lessons online. And we hope this seminar will give you some support in it.
So, the agenda of this webinar will be, first of all, what is the purpose of this seminar? Job and I will tell a little bit about ourselves, what we have done and so on. Then we will start to discuss how to teach chess online from different aspects. And then especially Job will show us how to use Lichess, the open source system that has been so popular during the last years. And then we discuss a little bit how you get paid for your services when you teach chess online. It's also a little bit about how you sell yourself, how you can advertise what you do. And then in the end, I think it's time to open up for sharing experiences and to make a summary. And not the least, in the very end, we will make a follow-up. You will have an email after the course, after the seminar. We will give you the links, and we will also summarize the different topics and the discussions that we have had. Anything you want to add to this, Job?
No, I think that's a very nice, I think that's what we will do today. As already see that there was one questions about other commercial websites. Mainly we chose for Lichess because it's free and it's also not commercial. Of course, we will briefly maybe mention some of the things which might happen in other platforms, but mainly we will focus on Lichess because it's a free website and it does a lot of options as well, as you will see.
So the purpose of this seminar is actually that, you know, in these Corona times, it's exploding the possibilities to work online. And we are many trainers, coaches, and teachers that want to use chess on the net. So My idea was that I wanted to do this seminar just to share experiences and to try to take the level of how to teach on the net to a new level, and to do some kind of professional briefing. We will not have time to go into all details, but at least this could be a start of something. And not the least, from my point of view, it's all about sharing experiences. The market is so huge. Even though we are many now that are interested in this field, I feel that still there are so many people needed, but then we need to be able to offer a good product, and that's the experiences we should share. Then, of course, also to build a network. I see this could be some kind of start of sharing ideas, sharing experiences, not only during this seminar, but actually afterwards as well. We can take a discussion about in the very end of this seminar.
Yeah, I think that's also one of the best things, I think, in this time, is that most of the time we see that everybody is on their own island, because we are all working very local or in our countries. And I think that now in the digital age, we will see that the distance will be more narrowed, and we will need to find each other. You can also see it, for example, with Carlsen, who is already making a digital tournament. And well, we have new challenges as a chess world. And I think we are just lucky enough that in chess, we can just stay at home and still practice our hobby, our passion. And I think that's, well, one of the greatest things also. I hope that this seminar will help us to make this network and that we can collaborate better together.
Okay, before we go into actually teaching on the net, just briefly about us. My name is Jesper Hall. I'm an international master. I've been working with chess since 25 years and been a trainer since this time. First, I was a trainer of talents, trying to develop them as great as possible. And since 10 years, I'm also moved into school chess. I built up the system of Sweden and Norway. And at the same time, I'm also working with how to organize talent developments in Sweden and Norway. Since 2014, I am the chairman of ECU Education, taking care of school chess in Europe. That's a bit about me. Job.
I'm international master since I was 19 years old. Since then, I was already quite a lot in trainings. I made postdoctoral my teacher's degree, so I have my didactical degree also there. I've been training since then. Since 8 years, I have my own chess academy, made some chess camps, made school chess, and also the last 3 years, I'm very involved in the Dutch trainers commissions and also to educate trainers, to become real professional trainers. And since last year, I also counsel the FIDE Trainers Commission, and I hope I can contribute in the ECU as well in future. So I'm very happy and delighted to help you all out in becoming great chess trainers, and well, hope you can enjoy your work even more in future.
From my point of view, I am not so technically skilled as Job, but what I'm really been interested in the last 20 years is actually how to teach. And from my point of view, and that's why I wanted to give this course as well, is actually because I've realized that there are quite a lot of differences between teaching in real life and on the net. And that was my angle when I put this course or this seminar up. So when it comes to teaching chess online, first of all, what we will look at is different communication tools that can be used. We take a look at the different platforms where you can play and where you can analyze. We discuss a little bit about didactics, what is important to think about when you do chess training on the net. We discuss how to prepare the lessons, how to give the lessons, and not the least, how do you act afterwards. So if we start with the communication tools, this has been going on, teaching chess on the net for quite a while now. And when I talk to my colleagues, it seems like most of them are using Skype if you do one-to-one training. If you have group training, it's becoming more and more popular to use Zoom. And not the least, if you have this type of large group that we have today, Zoom is by far the most popular, the most popular system to use. I know there are several other possibilities as well that you can use, but this is my experience. I don't know, Job, have you found out that there are other things that people are using that is worth mentioning?
There are a lot of other forms which are used in schools. What we mainly notice is that when you have an intranet, then other platforms like Microsoft Teams or something is very good. But when you're talking about a broad audience, and especially Zoom is easy because you can just click, you don't even need an account. So that's for the easy purpose, it's much easier to use. And what I mainly like as a chess trainer is these breakout rooms, which give you the opportunity to make small groups in your lessons. They can even share screens with each other. They can discuss all kinds of chess positions or anything what you prepare in advance. And it really looks like you're really giving lessons in the most didactical way. And I think that's very important because we know that in classes, there's a lot of difference in level. And in this way, you can separate them. Sometimes it's also that somebody is stuck in, let's say, with some technical issues. At that point in the beginning of the lesson, I can just make separate rooms. I solve the problem with one student, maybe in technical, and then I come back. The other thing is very nice is that when, as a teacher, you can just jump in the room, see if they're really working with their lessons, and actually they don't notice it. So they really have to be already working on the things. So I think that Zoom is a very nice tool to really narrow the real field as normal. And in general, I would say that Skype is more convenient because it's, you can just share your own screen and practice it like it's you're working on your, like normal. So that's easier.
So maybe we should take a little bit of a look. What does Zoom look like? We'll have a look. Let's have a look here. No, sorry. No,
by the way, just in between, I can mention that one of the questions was TeamViewer. Can we use it? TeamViewer is also good. What I find a little bit more difficult about it is that you also can play on the same computer. You can also see it as an advantage, but it will take a much better internet connection. Actually, this is one of the best thing or the most important thing to think about is that when you work with your students, try really to in advance to prepare everything like camera, a microphone, maybe some chess programs you wish to use that they have accounts. So try to make all this preparatory work in advance so that when you give the lessons, you really can start straight away. So there are also one of the things which we always as a trainer should think about is the AVG, is that your privacy. And that's also the reason why I normally prefer to share my screen, because you don't need anything written down that you might use of your students. I only use share screen when either my students are above 18 years old or the parents are sitting next to it. So I know immediately that I have approval to see their screens. So that's something, of course, nowadays, important issues as a trainer to keep in mind. And yeah, but mainly I would say that we really have to think about this preparatory work that you try to do it. Yes. Is there anybody, while Jesper is still a little bit trying to...
Yes, I have. Actually, this is typical. I have some problems actually right now.
Yeah, Let me try to answer maybe some of your questions so we can use the time in full. Are there any questions about maybe Skype or any options so far which you were facing difficulties or maybe challenges, or just you're curious about how that would work when we are using with Skype or Zoom in groups? So please type maybe some of your questions which you have for today. Also, this is one of the important things. I just continue talking while you have some time to write things down. Is that when you have a webinar, always try to be prepared, so to say. The same counts for your students when they come in class. Always let them think in advance on what they want to learn, or what you would like them to think about, and that's. So these kind of things are important. I think that we are already in our main screen.
Yes, now I hope you can see the Zoom program. And what I wanted to show you is that Zoom is offering different packages. They have the free basic package that is you can have for up to 100 participants. But the problem with that is that you can only have it for 40 minutes if you have it as a group meeting. So quite a lot of people, what they do is that they buy this pro part. And that means that you can have up to 100 people, and it can be quite long meetings, up to 24 hours. Then, of course, there are other possibilities as well, but this is the basic things that people are using. But beside that, what is also possible is to buy these type of webinars, and that's what we have here. And of course, now it starts to cost money because now it costs about 40 euros or $40 per month. But there are some great things with having a webinar like we are using right now. And that is that, first of all, the people cannot be seen. If you have a Zoom meeting, that means that everyone's camera is on, and they will be, you can see each other. And sometimes when you do these kind of video webinars, you want to record them, and then this is a problem quite often. And so actually this is the basic thing that you have also as a host, a better control of the group if you use a webinar rather than a meeting. And I just wanted to show you what it looks like on my account. So this is my account, and what you can choose when you get into the system is if you want to have take a look at your meetings, or if you want to take a look at the webinars. And if you click on the meetings, you will see all the meetings that are planned, scheduled. And if you click on the webinars, you will see all the webinars that are planned. And you can see I have some things coming up in the forthcoming days. When you want to schedule a webinar, you click on the webinar, you write in the topic of this, for example, a test. Let's have a test. You can make a description what it's about. Then you can see what time this new webinar should be held, the duration of it, the time zone. And then again, you can also choose if there needs to be a registration required to be in. If you want a password, this can be good to have a password. So not someone that you don't know goes into your meeting. Then you also can choose if you want to have a video on for the host and panelist from the very beginning, what kind of audio that should be. Then we have something that I think is quite good. It's to enable a practice session. This is something I always use when I do Zoom webinars. And that means that you can move into the system in advance and to prepare the system before all the attendees join in. And that's something that is very good. Then of course, you can record as well. And you can choose if you want to do it on the local computer or in the cloud. The advantage with doing it in the cloud is that you are ensured that you have the capacity to do the recording. What happened to me the very first time when I did my recording was that my computer did not have enough space because they get quite heavy, these parts. The problem is, of course, that in the cloud means that it will be published in the Zoom system in their cloud, and they would charge for that. So then we are up to $40 more per month if you want to publish all your recordings into this cloud. But if you do a lot of recordings, it might be a good idea. Please, Job, you had questions.
Yeah, just wanted to add some of the things which I think are quite useful. One of the questions was the breakout rooms. They are in Zoom, as I already wrote down. But they need to be switched on in the settings. But let's stay on this screen first. On the bottom, you have the option to switch on only authentic users can join. And that might be useful if you have, let's say, a smaller group, let's say 12 people or something, because you can add them to your liking, or if you see, and that gives you some security that only people really you want in your classes, they will join. The other options is that they need to wait. So maybe if you have some short time before the lessons, you're not there. So it means that they already can join in the waiting room. And of course, what is very important nowadays is also the cloud. It means the security options. I mean, in general, yes, the space on your computer should be large enough. On the other hand, I feel more comfortable keeping things on my computer than on the cloud. On the other hand, again, once more, the security also options on your computer, you need to register it where you keep them on your computer, because it's all privacy material. That's why normally when it's not necessary to record it, I normally would advise not to record your sessions because you have much less privacy issues. And what was also important is when you had the screen before with the options of with the pricing. When you go down for the webinars, keep in mind that the webinars is automatically switching off all videos, which is much more comfortable when you have large groups. When you have, for example, 10 to 12 players, which I already had, then you can request them to open the videos, or you can say that everybody needs to keep it closed, but then you do it all manually. And of course, the other questions were, can I control their computers? I would say, fortunately not, because I mean, we don't want everybody to be controlled, but that's a difficult thing when you're working with smaller kids. Yeah, it's always more difficult to control them. But on the other hand, I always think that the children are there to learn something. So I would say that they're always eager to work according to your plan. Another question I had with Discord. Do you know this program, Jesper?
Discord?
Yeah.
No.
It's also a little bit newer platform. It's a little bit like Skype. It's definitely a good option as well. I mean, I think that nowadays when you really want to work with all kinds of platforms, and I would say that in the next coming time, I'm very sure that more companies will come on the market which are providing something like this, because it's just something our future needs. Yeah.
And there is no doubt that we had these questions about if we were going to show chess.com and if chess24 and Chessbase and so on, the other companies on the market, just like with these companies, when it comes to this with having meetings and so on, there are so much happening, but the basic ideas are the same. So when Job will show you the Lichess, quite a lot of the functions and how it works, you will find very similar to the other possibilities as well.
Yeah.
So
I have some small questions. Let me quickly go through them. Little kids, from which age they can adapt online? I would say just when the children are under 8 years, I normally ask the parents to be there in the first lessons. When the kids are more or less used to how it works, then of course the parents can leave if they want and feel safe with it. You can mute all the participants if you want. In Skype, this unfortunately is not possible. On the other hand, I usually use Skype only for one-to-one lessons. If you want more, then maybe the business version of Skype might be an outcome. The 40 minutes it's closed, although now they prolong it a little bit under, I'm not sure the amount of players, but I definitely would advise you to buy the Pro version. Also, it's a little bit more secure. You have much more options to secure also your seminar, which I think nowadays, if you're really a little bit professional trainer, this is just a must. And all the benefits of having a Pro account are definitely worth the 14 euros or dollars.
And don't forget, Job, the children quite often are much better on computers than the parents. Even though they might only be 6 years old, they already have a lot of experiences. So
this is very true. And to be honest, I learned quite a lot also during my lessons from the kids. They say, why you don't use this option, why you use that option. So also when you're a little bit afraid about all these new techniques, definitely feel happy that the kids will join you and help you out as well.
And I would say also that my experience, because I was not born with a computer, but I have to take it step by step and I have to learn. And I keep it simple in the beginning. And then I add on step by step as I go along with the new technology. And I think you can think the same, just, to learn how to communicate, how to put up the chessboard. Then you have the basics, and then you can learn all about this with this possibilities to arrange groups and all the finesses that you have in the different systems.
I would say that's a very good advice, especially when you go digital and you haven't done anything yet. Try as simple as possible, not try to sophisticate the stuff, try not to use too many programs at the same time, just try to use one program, that's it. You can even do share screen with maybe something like a Chessbase or anything like where you save your positions. You will see that in Lichess, these options are very good as well.
I got one question here. When I showed this with Zoom, you need to have this professional system, but the attendees, they don't. They can have this free version, so that's no problem. Just to clarify that.
Yeah, that's a very good. I would say that's also one of the biggest benefits of this Zoom is that only as a host you pay, and the other ones can just join. They can install the software, and to make an account, but they also can just join, and that's it. So it means that everybody also with more privacy issues, they can also just join by clicking on the link and filling in the password, and that's.
Okay, I think it's time for us to move on and keep all your questions alive, and we come back to them in the very end. So here we are. Next step. So as you know, there are a lot of different playing platforms, and that is quite often something that you need to add to this type of teaching online, because as you know it's more difficult to play games like you can do when you meet in real life. But these platforms that is very popular for playing is not the least ChessKid or Chess.com, as well as Lichess. But we also have Chess.com, Chess24, PlayChess, ICC, and there are a lot of new comers coming up as well. So, and briefly, what can we say about these different systems? First of all, Chess24 and Chess.com, they are the largest ones in a way when it comes to playing, and when they have their different categories that they are looking for. Chess24 are mainly working with, I would say, training and videos and so on. Chess.com is really huge when it comes to playing. But we have, of course, the old ICC, Internet Chess Club. We have Chessbase with playchess.com. And then we have Lichess. And Job, what are you using, for example?
I'm mainly using Lichess and Chess.com. I find them the most easiest to adapt to my lessons. Today we will just have a look on Lichess and mainly focus a little bit on that one. So I share some ideas from it.
I think you can wait a bit with that because I will have some parts that I will do first. Yeah. But I just tell you that I know that all of these companies as well are now providing new pages for coaches. So they are really worth looking into, all of them, I would say, to see what is most suitable for you. Okay, so we have then, of course, different possibilities to analyze as well. I move on to the next one, which is about how to teach. And this is actually the part that I wanted to give to you in this seminar, while Job is, I would say, a bit more experienced when it comes to the technical part. My strength is on how to actually teach. And the first thing I would like to emphasize is that always you should have the outside and in perspective. And this is something that I think is very important, not only for teaching chess on the net, but actually in all kinds of situations when it comes to chess. The idea is that what you should always do is to put yourself in the other person's position. For example, what is important for a child who wants to be taught by you in chess? What is important for the parent? Or how do I make them interested in what I do? Always take a look from their point of view. This is the key if you want to be successful in what you do. For example, I tell you one thing that a lot of chess trainers that I have met forget. It is that what is important for a child is not only to become good in chess, but it's actually to have a good time. It's to have a good session where they can have a laugh, where they can have a great time together with you. For the parents, normally, they want to feel that the trainer is always there in time, that it's they know, they get the invitation in time, everything is well working, so they don't have to be worried about if things is going to happen in the right way, in the right time. So it's important to always have this attitude. What is important for the other person? Because then you will find out how to move on from that. The second question is actually, do you really want to be a trainer or a coach? Because a lot of chess players, they do training because they need money. And if you only do training and teaching because you need money, quite often you can feel that if you're a pupil or attendee at these kind of training sessions or webinars. So from my point of view, when I meet a trainer that really loves what he is doing, then you will feel that immediately. And this is something to think about, to find your way where you like to be a trainer, where what is your motivation to do it as good as possible. Then pupils want to feel that you care. I think this is also something that is very important to know their names. For example, I had one course now in I think it was 3 years ago in Batumi, and Maya Chibodanidze was taking part. It was for trainers and teachers that wants to start with chess in schools. And she said that for her, it was very important to learn all the names of the children that would enter into her classes of chess. Because if you know the name of the child, this is a very good start. They will feel that you are that they are important for you and that you care about how they learn and what they do.
It's a nice famous phrase is that what they say about teachers, the students don't care about what you know, but they want to know how much you care. I mean, this is
that is that. Yeah, I totally agree with that one. Yeah. Is there anything you want to comment on this? The first three dots on this?
Well, I mean, what I always find very important. I mean, we very often have a very clear idea about our students. We want them to be motivated. I hear very often about trainers that that's what they like. They like to train motivated students and everything. And I think if you expect and like this attitude of the students, then you need to be the source and inspiration also for them to show exactly the same thing. So if you want this kind of students, then also be the trainer for them in the same way. I think that's just more than fair. And I think that's
Yes.
For
Yes,
me,
I
I
agree.
mean, to understand the motives of the student is always the first thing, and also try to understand your own motives. And of course, in the end, I understand that every trainer just also has just their cost and they want to make salary. But I think, yeah, long term, you can't play chess for life. As a student, you can't play chess all your life when you only like winning prizes, because for sure we will not win only prizes. And the same counts for a teacher who only makes money. They want to know why you care, why you train, what's your biggest motivation, and what's your starting point from all of it. And I would say that every trainer who starts being a chess trainer needs to find the answer to this question. Why are you training, and what's the most, what drives you to come every day to the training and to inspire players?
Yes, I actually think that this is probably the most important thing, is to understand that what you can do for someone when you teach them chess or you train them chess is actually to give them inspiration to train on their own.
Yeah.
This is very important, because we all know as chess players that the hard work you have to do on your own, and then at least as a trainer what you can do is to give them the motivation, inspiration, and the tools how to do it. Anyway, the fourth dot here is be well prepared. And I think this is something that is very, very important to understand, that you should be as well prepared as you can. When you enter a room for a lecture, for example, if everything is prepared, if you feel that the person in front of you has done the homework to be as well prepared as possible, you feel that, you'll be on your toes immediately. So it's not only to be well prepared when it comes to the chess, but actually everything around. And when it comes to chess on net, of course, it's all about the techniques, that this works, that you are on time, that it's easy for the child to go into the system that we are working with, that you have a backup system if something is failing. Those are the keys to be well prepared when it comes to chess on net. Finally, I also want to mention two things. It's the first thing is one important thing, that because now I've started to work with a lot with different type of webinars, and I also coach quite a lot of trainers and coaches on the net these days. I look at their lessons and I give them feedback when they teach. And one of the things that I have realized is that what is very important when you do training on the net is to take it step by step, because it's difficult for you to understand how much your audience actually know. Of course, now if it's one-to-one situation, that's something else. But if you have a group of people, it's quite good to have a very simple example in the beginning and then take it step by step so everyone can follow. Because you don't have these interactive possibilities as you have got in real life. So this is something I have understood is even more important than in real life training.
I mean, I fully agree to this point. Can I add something just as a
For
small
sure.
note? I mean, this breakout rooms, which I was discussing before, could be a tool which is definitely helping you in this part. First, of course, you can always ask the questions in an open way. What do you see in the position? What kind of tactics or maybe signs you see in the position? And second, after, you can try to make the discussion in the group. So try not to give the answers yourself, but try, let's say, as a ball, to keep the ball in the group. The other way of the breakout rooms is that they can discuss things together, make some summary. You can always join this kind of breakout to see and listen what they're doing. You can also adjust to what they are capable of doing with some small remarks. And maybe other groups which are further more advanced or maybe less advanced, you can ask different kind of questions. So I think that this point, step by step, is very important, as Jesper mentioned. And mainly this thing we can, how to say, make more clear for us by asking a lot of questions without answering them straight away. Of course, we have the answers, but the interesting thing as a trainer is to be modest and to be patient in your answers. Because in the end, in the game, the students always have to find their own answers. They have to understand what can they do when they're stuck, when they can't find the answers. And these small questions to learn them is one of the most important things, I think.
Well, I suggest, Job, that after this seminar, what we do is that we make a really good description on how to create this kind of breakout rooms, because we have quite little time. So we decided, Job and I, not to do this with you today, but I think that we could make a really good description how to make it so you can test for yourself if you choose to work with Zoom. Okay, finally, what I want to introduce to you is what I call the SMART method. It's the kind of didactic tool that I use when I am preparing for chess lessons. And I think this is very important also when you teach chess on the net. And first of all, don't forget that chess is about self-learning quite a lot. And that means that it's not you as a teacher, as a trainer, who should have a show off. It's actually the student, the attendee, that should learn something. And you learn best if you try for yourself. And of course, when you do it in real life, it might be easier to find out different ways to let the child or the adult or your pupil test for themselves. But also on the net, there are quite a lot of different possibilities, not only to solve exercises, but actually you can have different ways of letting them try for themselves. Not the least, Job will show you some possibilities in Lichess in a while. Motivation. This is something we come back to, that it's so important that you find out what is the motivation of your pupil or your pupils. Is it only to become better in chess, or is it to win games? Is it to solve problems? Is it to have fun, to have anecdotes told? There are quite a lot of variety, actually, if you start to dig down in what is the motivation of all the people that you give chess training to. Then you have adjust the level of your teaching to your pupil. This is something that can be difficult because you might have a group of people of huge differences when it comes to strength and also from age. And then again, if we go back to what Job introduced you to, this with the breakout rooms, this could be one possibility, to divide them into smaller groups that could work with suitable exercises for them. But I must say, not the least, the possibilities on the net. This has been a revolution for trainers, that there is now a possibility to give every pupil a challenge, because they can work on their own through different systems on their own level. And these are something that is really good with this technical revolution. Then we have something that quite a lot of trainers, from my experience, find a bit difficult. It's actually how to make a variety, how to find a range of activities so you not only use the same format, the same concept over and over again when you teach. And here I think also on the net, there are possibilities that you could let them play. You can play a simul, you can let them practice on their own, you can have like webinars like we do now, lectures, and you can let them be more interactive. So try to make a variety when you teach also on the net. And the last one, technology, is so obvious when it comes to working on the net. This is what I would say, some of the basic didactics. There are, of course, a lot more to be said, but we will not cover all of these topics in this seminar. So, okay, now to preparation. And not the least when it comes to technology, this is important that you, first of all, have scheduled your contact with the pupil. If it's a one-to-one session or it's a group session, it's important that they know when and how to get into the system so they are prepared when you start. And not the least that everything is working and that you are there in time. So technology should be ready and prepared, and well, just so you can start immediately. Yes,
just to add one thing, definitely as a trainer, I would advise you to make a cable internet and not Wi-Fi. Although this is one of the things I changed in my house. Because I'm on more on the top floors and I just made it from down. I really make it with the cable upstairs because it's much more stable, and stable internet, good microphone, good webcam is really a necessity to train properly. I mean, the lessons are really annoying when there are a lot of background noises or anything like that. So at least from your part, try to really be technical ready. This is something I really can confirm.
Yes, and that actually, we come back to the very last part, troubleshooting. And this is, of course, very important to have a backup. If something is going wrong, you should know what to do. Be prepared. For example, if it comes to the internet, I have myself, I have quite a good Wi-Fi on my phone that can be used. I've had some times when you have problems when the cable actually went off from to my house, then I had to do it through my phone. It worked quite okay. It could also be that, all the type of things that can happen also for your student. You should give them advice in advance how they should react if something is a problem when you have your lessons.
And also maybe to this aspect, sorry, just what is very good is to make a trial maybe with another trainer or maybe with just a friend or something. If you want to give a lesson with a new like Zoom and you never tried it, make a trial with a friend or maybe a colleague trainer. Just to see how everything works. I did it several times before I was giving lessons, and that's really useful. You can just try, think together, and that's the troubleshooting is definitely worth your classes to make more quality in the lessons.
One trick that I use that could be added to this that Job says is that I also quite often have a connection where I go into, for example, this webinar that we are having now. I have another computer by my side. So I'm here as an attendee as well. And then you can look at what does it actually look like from the audience point of view. So you have a checkout for that as well. That could also be a way so you get in control of that everything looks okay. And then, of course, to have a lesson plan. You need to have a clear idea of what you want to do and be as prepared as possible so you can give a good lesson. And if we come to this with a lesson, I normally say that what is important is to have a clear start and a clear end. And I've also noticed that when it comes to the net, it's quite important to keep time. You start in time and you keep time because people are very busy. They have new meetings happening normally, you switch from the exact hour or half the hour, a new meeting will start. So try to be starting and have a clear end. Then, of course, to just like Job said, have a good mic and a microphone, not the least. This is normally actually one of the greatest problems because it's so disturbing to have a bad voice that you cannot hear what they say. This is very problematic normally. I think it's even more problematic than if you have a bad picture of yourself. And that also means that it's good to be speaking clearly and to be prepared what you want to say. So you have some ideas about that, so you can communicate in a good way. Yeah, then of course, again, you have to choose what kind of channels to use, what kind of playing areas, what analysis platforms to use, that everything is prepared in advance so it's easy for you to move on into this. Is there anything you want to add, Job, to this?
No, I think that the clear start is always very good. Try to have some minutes where you can speak with your students to see what was going on their day or maybe especially when they're in groups, when their background noise, really mute all your students. This is something very important, or try to tell them not to sit in the living room with a lot of people with background television or anything like that, because that's really annoying. It happened quite often to me. Of course, not always is possible, but I always advise them to sit in a separate room, because if there's just one television switch on, it's really, it disturbs the whole training in a very annoying way. So that's, in that case, I'm also saying, okay, if you have no other option, then the only thing is that you really will be muted almost all lessons, because the point is that we need to have a proper lesson. I think
okay.
yeah.
I move on. Then after the session, do not forget the importance of having a good follow-up, and normally emphasize on the positive things happening, because positive response is always stronger than negative. Then you encourage them to do right. That's one thing to think about. Then, of course, as I said, one of the goals that you should have as a trainer is to inspire the child or your pupil to train on their own. This is a real key to development. And this can be done, of course, to give them some kind of exercises, studies, homework, or whatever you call it, to inspire them to work on their own. And then, of course, to schedule the next session. Never finish off a lesson without having said, okay, next time we meet is this and this and this. And then, of course, they should have the invitation in time, so it's easy for them to know and to get it into their calendar when you have your next meeting.
Yeah. I think one of the questions is also quite important, which was in the chat, is that what about breaks? Jesper, how do you?
Yes, actually, so at least for me, I have a feeling that normally you should not have longer sessions than 1 hour. This is my experience so far. But there are also actually studies shown, research that have shown that every 25 minutes you should go up from your chair and do some movement. So sometimes I do that with my children, and actually we could do it now. We could move up and do some, just do some exercises like this, just to, to be able to focus again. So this is actually what I say, okay, for example, if I have small children, I saw in the chat that someone said, what about I have children that are 6 years old? Then I normally have a break at about 15 minutes or something like that. Then I say to them, okay, now you run around the table 2 times and then you sit down again. Or you can do some kind of tricks to make them, so they get focused when they come back. This is, how do you do it?
Yeah, I think that definitely with small children, the 20 minutes lasting is a very important one. I would say every 20 minutes, just 5 minutes break, you will see that definitely the concentration and focus will be much better. With older people, of course, it can be a little bit different, but definitely 5 minutes break is really necessary, just for coffee, just for maybe a small, anything, just what you need to do in 5 minutes. I think that's definitely something we should include. I'm not sure about today, because in general we are quite tight in the schedule. But in general, this is really something I advise to all the things, because it's quite a lot of information you are sending. Although, of course, if you prepare it, it feels like you know everything, but when for students everything is new, it might be really useful just to have.
Yes. No, for me, it's no problem if you do some exercises while I speak. Please do, and I can assure you I cannot see you if you do some exercises. So just go along. Yeah. But let's move on. So now that was the first part, a little bit about teaching and so on. And there is no doubt there are a lot of things more to talk about when it comes to didactics and so on. But the main focus of this seminar is actually how to do it on the net, and also the technical part. So you are ready to take all your experience in real life training into the net. And now I think it's time for you, Job, to take us into Lichess and to show us the possibilities that this system can offer.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I mean, the Lichess is a very nice website with a lot of options. Let's start just in the beginning. If you want to play, you can, of course, just create a game. There's all kinds of variants you will see. If you're curious, what are the standards or what are, for example, King of the Hill, if you have no idea what it is, then also you can go to Watch. Then you can go to current games. And then you see that everything is kind of explained with symbols, what it is. So for example, if I click on King of the Game, then you will see that the one who enters the king in the middle safely will win the game. You see, it's a really crazy game. All the other games are more or less, you can find out in the same way. So playing games is just like in any, you have an increment, you have just the main time, and here you see other time limits, and it can be rated, can be normal, you can even choose the color, everything is just at hand. Another interesting tool for trainers is to make tournaments. You see already there are a lot of tournaments. And what is actually the main interesting thing, I would say, is always on the right side. You see here, there's this plus button if you want to create something on your own. You see here, this is my name. You can choose your variant. You can do it's rated or not. You can start initial position, but this is already quite interesting. You can choose an opening. So if you already have a specific opening you want to train, you can choose a topic and make a thematic tournament. Of course, you can make all the times. You can even say what time it will start and well, other things. The requirements can be also be a little bit adjusted with password and everything. Which okay, gives some security, but I would say that in general, in the beginning, I wouldn't use it. What is kind of interesting is that you can use this option of only team members, because in that case, you can just open a tournament and nobody else will enter it. And then, of course, you're asking, where's this option of teams? You will go to community. You see, you can make here your own team. I made one team already, and you see people can already make a request to join your team, and you can invite them. The only thing which is not possible yet is to make two teams, and that they are, for example, make a team battle. So in that case, you need just to ask one of your students to make an own team and invite the other members, and then you can team up and play each other. So that is something about tournaments. I think that in the meanwhile, while I'm talking, you can just please write your questions to the chat. Jesper will keep in track and ask the questions a little bit to me, so I can, yeah, if there are any doubts or any questions, I will try to answer them as well. Another interesting option is to play Simon. As you can already see, I made one example. Again, sorry. On this side, you can, in the middle, you can host a new Simon. Here, again, you have all the options on how to do it. You can do initial position, or again, one of the openings. You can say if it's for your team or just no restrictions, anybody can join. And unfortunately, there's no setup position yet. This is maybe something which will come in the future. And here you can host your new simultan. Watch, we already discussed. There's a lot of things going on now with broadcasting, streamers, Lichess TV, which is quite interesting. You can just by clicking see what's going on there. Community, we kind of discussed. Team is quite interesting if you want to make a group of students together. And forum, if you have any questions or improvements on the program, or you want to find some information, that's also quite useful.
I have some interesting questions to you, Job, here.
Yes, please.
It is all these different possibilities that you show us here.
Yeah.
Are they usable for all kind of attendees? Should you think about the age of a child or and so on? Because, for example, this to play on the arena tournament, is that suitable for kids, and how long time, and all these different possibilities?
Yeah, I mean, well, in general, these are just, I would say maybe created playing game is just something normal, which you can explain. I think that creating a tournament is quite interesting because you really can set every Friday, for example, your tournament. I remember that one of the trainers, he was organizing online free tournaments, and then he made some small advertisement that he can analyze the games afterwards, which was some kind of way of making a promotion for himself. So that's also something you can think about. You organize tournaments for players, maybe even with some materials about an opening, after you offer your services for analyzing those games. And well, okay, this is a way of promoting yourself. When it comes to the options of tournaments, of course, Chess Kids is maybe a little bit more sophisticated, like any other tournaments like chess.com also, and I think Chess24 might have them as well. But I think here it's quite easy and quite sophisticated. Yeah.
I have some questions here as well that I think that many have been thinking about, Job, is that, a lot of us working with chess, we are having different groups and so on, but that means that you can have one team for each group, and then you can let them play and so on.
Yeah, that's something I was looking for. Unfortunately, this option is not available, but I'm really hoping to get that done quickly, because that's definitely something which would add to our lessons and to make it more interesting. I want to show you two options which might already answer a little bit in a different way. One of the options is that you can, become a coach in Lichess. So it means you can promote yourself. At the moment, these options are only for title players. As you can see, there's a big list. And well, you can just write anything what you would like to offer and tell more about yourself. Then there's another option that's called for everybody, is Lichess classes. And in this way, you can create a class. Then you can say this student is, you can add all kinds of students. You can see if they did something or if they made progress. And in this way, you can follow them and see if they made any puzzles and everything. So the classes is some way how you can make different kind of groups because there you can follow them. But to play teams together, this option is not available yet.
There are many people now asking you to show how do you actually teach one-to-one through Lichess and groups and so on. What will it look like, and how do you prepare, and what do you do?
Yeah, actually, it's a very good question. Well, the main thing is just studies. Studies is actually where you can prepare all your materials. I will show you two examples on how I could do it. One of the lessons I was making is that here I made 8 positions on the topic of King's attack. Here you can even write things down, like for example, eliminate defender capturing, or you can bring a helping piece or guard for making this mating net. As you can see, I can switch on my computer. And here you can even make an opening explorer if it's an opening. So and you can practice with computer. That's also interesting options you can give to students, because that's the whole thing. Here I made the studies and I edited and I will show you later by PGN. Here I can add all kinds of players, members. I press on members, I make a search. You see already one of my students is online. So in that case, I could just click here and he will be added. On the other hand, what is very important in the beginning is that if he is a student, try to follow him. So it means that next time when he's online, it's easier to add him to every new study or everything playing position you would like to make. If I want to know if he's playing, then I can just click on broadcast and see if he's playing or not. I will not disturb my student now. But
still, I think Job, it's interesting for us to see how do you actually do it? I mean, you make an appointment with someone that you are going to teach in a one-on-one to one situation? Do you use like Skype, or how do you actually do the training? I think we want to see it's in very hands-on practical matter.
Okay, on the practical matter, when I'm working, I usually make a combination of three things. I will use Chessbase, I use chess.com, and I use Lichess. Lichess I use mainly for group lessons in the club. I can share my screen now. So here's my chess base. For example, I prepared here positions. I can just show them. We can analyze them. And what's quite interesting is that also you can share a selected part of your screen. So you don't always have to show everything. You can also make a smaller part to select it.
But how do you share screen then?
Share screen is just by the new, well, in general, you have news, you click on share screen, then you can just, and by advanced, you can make portion screen.
But in what program you mean you share screen?
In Chessbase, sorry.
In Chessbase, okay.
Chessbase, this is Chessbase, as you now can see.
Yes.
Then I can also make it smaller just only to the chessboard if I don't want to show them the solutions, for example. Of course, you can add any computer, you can go online. These options I like quite a lot because it just becomes more smooth. But of course, it depends on the analyze. If you want them to find the answers, of course, you're not showing this. If you want to analyze them with them, and you will really analyze in the games that might be useful.
But where is the button to share screens in Chessbase?
Not in Chessbase, sorry, I use Zoom or Skype. In Skype, exactly. I make the share screen.
Yes.
And in Zoom, I also use share screen, and then I just go to test Chessbase. Very good question. And then I just, well, we analyze just the positions which I prepared in advance. What I like quite a lot is the option that I have this option, so to say, in Chessbase, for example, and sometimes I have the lesson and the students say, we want to play this position. We have an interesting position, we analyze, and suddenly appears that everybody feels like, well, we disagree on how the position is. And then I just copy the position here in Chessbase. I might copy position. Then I go, for example, to Lichess. Therefore, it's important that everybody has Lichess. Then I can just go to studies. Then I go to the plus. Here you can see you can create all kinds of names. Let's say it's King's Attack. Here, what is important, you'll make that it's only invited only. So only the people who you invite as your student can look at it. It's a little bit selfish, but I will only be able to copy it yourself. It's important to say it because maybe later on you want to make it to an exercise or something, so you want to be able to clone it. Chat, everybody can join, and enable screen is keep everybody on the same position. This is important because otherwise you might lose students who are doing their own things. So you go to start. Here you see we can make the fan, and also here you have the PGN option. For example, if I have prepared a PGN with, let's say, 8 examples, I can just upload now the PGN and it will just come like in the screen I showed before. If I want to play this playing exercise and I want to do it spontaneously, I can just copy the fan, which I just copied from Chessbase. My orientation was from white. And here you have another options, practicing against the computer, so the students can individually play against the computer. You can hide the next moves. For example, if you prepared the full analysis and you don't want to show them which moves they need to guess, you use this option. If you want interactive lessons where you add all kinds of moves and everything, the last option would be the best.
Just to understand here, Joop, so that means that when you actually show your examples, I mean, this is the topic of today and so on, then you use Skype, and you share screen.
Exactly.
And you show it in Chessbase. That's correct, huh?
Exactly.
And can you make like in Zoom that you are masking, so you only get the board when you go into the system with Skype? Is that possible?
Sorry. Yeah. So when I have the board, I mean, you mean this position, and that we only have the board, right?
No, no. Yeah, I know. What I mean is that if you're showing someone an example, and can you use Skype? But the Skype and you share the screen, then you see the whole screen. But in Skype, can you do that? You only mask it, so you only see the board. Is that possible with Skype?
Yeah, that's definitely possible. Yeah.
Yes.
You can just share screen. There's the tool on the right side of the screen. You can see the two options, and then you can frame it to your wish. And what is very good in Skype as well is that you have the small screens where you can still visibly see your player. So I can still see my students if they're thinking or not, if they pay attention or not. And especially with small children, this is quite important because you want to see what they are doing.
Yes.
Older people, it's maybe less important. Yeah.
Actually, we have some people asking, can you show us how you do that? Is it possible, Job, you think? To show us in Skype, or should we do it afterwards? We can do it like this. I suggest that all the questions you have that we feel that we might not have the time to do now, what we can do is to write you a manual afterwards, or we can make a little video, Job and I, with the technical stuff,
I think that
and we can send it out to you.
The point is why I don't want to do it now is that there might be some privacy issues of what I will see in the Skype screen.
Of course.
So, but definitely we will make the breakout room. We will just show in a small video and the share screen. So please ask all your questions and we will provide you the answers in written form or in small video form.
And I also have one question here is that if you have Zoom, do you really need Skype then? Because from my experience, Zoom is a little bit more, there's no technical problems ever with Zoom so far for me, while Skype sometimes is more, it's not so, stable as Zoom is my experience, so that's why I've started to use Zoom for everything. But how do you do it, Joe?
I mean, definitely the quality of the broadcast is better in Zoom. What I like very much about Skype is that I can have my information with my students. I can write things down. Also, when, for example, I give them PDFs or anything, it will be saved in Skype and I can see next lesson what I did last lesson. So it's a little bit also like a storage place on what did you do. I mean, the planning is also just less work. I mean, in Skype, you can just open the screen, you can just call, and that's it. And with the meetings, you always need to set the meetings. You always need to think about, you always need to think about password and everything. So it's a little bit more hassle. Not much, but a little bit more. Also,
but again, what is good with this is that if you have both systems, you have a backup. Again, exactly. That's very good as well.
I mean, this is definitely something very good because I noticed, for example, yesterday I wanted to have a Skype lesson. We didn't get through for whatever reasons. I mean, and instead of being annoyed with each other, if it's my fault, it's your fault, we just called each other in Zoom and the problem was solved. And so, yeah, definitely to have a backup plan, like we said before, is a very good idea.
Please continue.
So we have this position. As I said, I mean, most important is that you can do the members. That's also why you have your make all your students friends. You see my friends online are always on the right button. You can see that he's playing. Then the second point is that here you can see you can make the changes if you're planning to do something different, and you can also delete a chapter or clear annotations if that's necessary. You can also make the name. For example, if later on I want to change the name, this option is also good, and I can just give it any name I want. Another option is always here, that is added to study. Once more, you see already all the information is here. Then comes the interesting question. Imagine that I want to make this a playing exercise. There are two ways of doing it. One way is I go to these 3 lines, and then suddenly a very interesting screen will appear. You can set here the memory of your computer, how many CPU you want to use, how many lines. Well, you can see the options here at the right. You can flip the board, you can make a board annotation, but the most important one is continue from here. And you see already it's a duo. It means that I'm going to play against a computer. very easy, or I can play with a friend. And especially when I was giving lesson on Sundays with my group with teenagers, I could just set up this position. I could just add all my students as member, and they could challenge each other in this way, play with a friend. Then, of course, you see here from which position. Again, once more, here they can copy the fan. If you have any other communication in email or WhatsApp group or anything. By the way, this is also something I do. For all my training groups, I have WhatsApp groups, which is quite convenient because from time to time, also during classes, I can send them pictures, I can send them fans or anything. Also, that's an option here. You can see we can change it. Then very important, they need to make the time control to real time because you want them to play straight away. And here's the settings. You can choose whatever color they want to use. And well, imagine I played with white. Then here they can invite their competitor member from the group, another student. And then I can just play.
I had one question on this because I cannot see who is on the move. Whose turn?
It was a white move. Sorry.
And in this position, there were no king, white king. That was also a surprise.
Did I forget about it?
It's okay. I just thought that it's not so nice to invite someone to play against you if he's lacking a king.
Well, it depends on.
It depends on. That's right. Okay.
I will show you one example on the position I was playing. For example, one of the positions I was playing here is there was one famous game between Boglibov and Botvinnik. As you can see here, I saved all my students' games. And they were inviting each other, which is kind of interesting is because they played this game and I can press downstairs on computer analysis, which means that here the computer will go through all the games and see if they make any mistakes or what kind of mistakes and so on. And you will see that they made one blunder and the rest is just, okay, it's not that much information, but anyway, you see also here on the right screen, the analysis will come. I can just still adjust Stockfish, and I can also go through with my other student because if I'm in Zoom, I can say at some point everybody finished their games, look at this game, we're going to analyze and see how did we play, which kind of mistakes did we make, how we can improve it next time, write down your learning points, what kind to think, and what is very important when you make this kind of exercises, always put sync and rec switched on because it means that everything what you do will be saved. If you switch it off, it means it will be lost after you analyze, and that would be a pity. Second point, if you want to make chess-based annotations, you can always use this button. If you want to lay PGN tags, and you can make commands to the position. Interesting, if you want to share, you can see that here there are all the options to share it in whatever way you want to do it. And this option is fantastic for a teacher. I can see all the boards at the same time, and I can even switch on which positions are playing. Of course, now all of them are finished, but for example, you have a lesson. In the current time, I can see which students are still playing, and I can see how long it will take, and I can already think what to do next or which exercise I can give to the players who already finished the game. Because that's not, of course, what you want to do. You want to keep them interactive, you want to keep them busy. So I can also see a little bit on the time frame on how it's going.
So that is when you get, so they, is this also for exercises, when they solve exercises that you have?
It could be solving exercise or playing exercises. This is what I like to do is I like lessons to be interactive as possible in the normal lessons. Normally people like to touch pieces, to think there's something on themselves, solve things on their own. And in this way, you see already that with Lichess, you can let them play exercise and play each other and make it very interactive. You can say, well, analyze now with each other. Later we will come back. And from this, again, once more, from the breakout rooms, they can share the screens as well. So
I have one very important question here. It is also that if you first you said you start with chess base and with, and you show your screen, you share your screen and you do this. And then you say, let's go into our club in Lichess and you go here. How do you communicate with them? Can you do that still do it through with a mic, or do you do it only by chat when you do it then?
No, I do that like I do now. I mean, everybody's hearing me. So actually what I'm doing in my classes is exactly the same with what I do now. I'm talking in Zoom. I share my screen. I share my screen all the time. So any player who finished their game, they can always come back to Zoom and follow my commands, or because most of the time I'm playing or I'm following other students' games. So all the time there's some action they can do something. Nobody have to be sitting bored and wait for things to be finished. Yeah, so that's so in Zoom I'm just talking, I'm sharing. Then I'm going mainly first to ChessBase, explaining some things. Then at some point in analysis, most of the time it happens that we end up in an interesting position where we disagree or we agree to disagree. What's the situation in the position, or everybody feels like, okay, this is a nice position. Then I try to copy it, or I prepare it in advance, depends a little bit. Most of the time I already have some playing exercises prepared, but sometimes you have that in the moment of the heat, some analysis appears, and then you can actually quite quickly do it, and then they can analyze. So what I often do also is when I'm copying this as a playing exercise, there's a moment of pause because I need to copy it to Lichess. So in that moment, I make break rooms. I let them mainly analyze the position so far. There are two options. Sometimes I have the positions in Lichess and they can follow it. Sometimes I just make a print screen and send it in WhatsApp, so they can just go from WhatsApp.
Okay, shall we move on a bit? What more do we have in this system?
So actually, I think that the what is kind of, so you have this study. I showed already that there here you have these options. What is kind of important with these studies is that you can put them in private. And what's very important is the topics. The topics are very useful for you to how to say, to organize your materials a little bit. That's also one of the things still not well done in best way if you are very systematic in your materials. But with the topics, you can just mark them. And for example, if I have playing exercises, I can just find all exercises which are connected to playing exercises or anything like that. So you can make some schedule like this, but as you can already see here, they're not really organized in a proper way. And the more lessons you give, the more difficult it becomes.
One question I have here is also about this with broadcasting or videos. Can you make videos into in this system that you add in or that you give to your students?
Well, what you do is if you're in Zoom, you can of course record the lessons, and that in that case everything what I'm showing will be recorded as well.
But it's not integrated into your club or into this. Okay.
No. This is only by Zoom or by Skype.
Yes.
I think that, well, I mean, there are several other things. So we have this coordinates game, which is kind of fun. They are also in other platforms, so you can just click and see the coordinates. I think one of the most important thing which already has been done in chess.com is that the pieces are off the board, which is of course much better because they are a little bit distracting in this position, but you have to click too many squares in the same time, especially when kids are starting. They like to do this kind of exercises and it's kind of fun. But as I said, they are a little bit already in other platforms a little bit better, I would say. I hope that in Lichess they will try to work on it. Puzzles are done in the same way. Once more, for my own lesson, I use other commercial platforms for this more than Lichess because they're more totally trained, and the puzzles here are not rated that much, and also you cannot select so much on topic which you want to train, which I like to do. And I think that's in the tools. This is one of the important things. You have Analyze Board, Opening Explorer, and you can import all kinds of things. Analyze Board is quite interesting because you can see what the computer advises. You can see that if I switch on the engine, he will show the best move, which of course is spoiling the answer. So in general, be careful with to switch this option off. In the other one option,
this you can implement position into this direct. You don't have to make all the moves.
You can just copy the fan from your chess base or make the PGN and copy it and then import PGN, so it goes quite smooth.
Yes.
So that's fine. Also, this is the way with board editor, you can make the playing position. As you see, continue from here. And once more, the students also can go to this option, Tools, Board Editor. You have all the options to make the position again. You can flip the board, clear the board, and continue from here. You also can make a study from it. And you can set up the position also just in the program itself. All the variants you can choose, so it's quite thoroughly and nice. And once more, you see the same options coming here back. Another two options, which is maybe important in the beginning when you have an account, is that your challenges you see here in the top. So if I'm challenged here, there will come one. And when there are notifications, the bell will show you your messages. And I think that's the main thing which I would say how I use Lichess. As I said, there are some improvements, but let's be honest, it's for free. This is one of the biggest advantages. Once more, I would always friend all my members because that's really easier to add them to any positions later on, especially also when they want to play each other and they're a little bit in lesson, they are stuck how to challenge each other. Prepare your working forms in this way also quite a lot.
So to summarize, what you do, Job, is that you start normally with Zoom, for example. Yeah. The child or the group comes into Zoom and you share your screen. You show them an example in ChessBase. And then after that, you say, now it's time for Lichess. You are still using Zoom all the time. Then they start to work on their own with different things. You communicate with them, tell them what to do. You might play Simul, or you play, or you let them play games against each other. So this is like this variety that comes after that you have made your presentation. That is correct.
Exactly, that's correct. And I know it depends very much. I mean, sometimes I have students which are just like, they played a tournament or something like this. They want to analyze the games and we just stick to ChessBase because it's just, we're analyzing the games and it's very interactive. And normally I use Dropbox to save everything for my students to exchange materials. That's easier because otherwise I get a lot of emails and that's a lot of work. So I always find it easier to work in Dropbox because then after the lesson, my students have the materials and I don't have to do anything anymore and we can continue to the next lesson.
Okay, so should we move back, Job, you think? Sure. And we can continue the discussion?
Yes, sure.
So let's share screen. So, there are some parts more than this. For example, this with payment. How do you do that, Job? When you
in Holland we have I work with invoice, and when there are students from Holland, and I just invoice them and they are paying it. And other option for foreign students, I work with PayPal because it's safe and it's a very convenient option as well. You only have to keep in mind that with PayPal there are some costs and you need to decide on which side the costs are. So either include it in your fee and then be sure that it's a little bit higher than you normally would charge, or say it's a part of the deal.
So how much is it for PayPal or, for example, Eventbrite and so on?
I think PayPal was think it was something like 3%.
Exactly. I think it's 3 to 4% normally, plus some extra. I mean, I think it's about 0.3 euros or something like that per transaction.
And the good thing about Europe is, at least, is that all the bank transfers are for free.
Yes,
so
that's right.
Maybe Europe has a lot of disadvantages, but the bank system at least helped us a little bit.
Yes, but then of course, like I have heard of quite a lot of different paying systems. Like Sweden, where I come from, we have that you can send money through your telephone. Swish, it's called. It's very, very easy and very great, and can go straight into your account, like for me. So that's something that is very good for me to use. So there are different national ones to use, but like Job, if you have a lot of international students, then it could be recommended to use also PayPal or something like that. So now a little bit about advertising. You showed us a bit in Lichess and that you could also advertise for yourself as a coach. But what more ways do you recommend, Job? What kind of different possibilities?
That's a very good question. It's, I mean, nowadays there are a lot of ways how to sell yourself. I mean, you can make small videos. I would say that nowadays videos are still the best way to sell yourself, because people can see you speaking. People can see what you're doing, if they like the way you communicate, the way you think, and show yourself how it will normally go. Also quite important, I would say, with selling point is that you need to expectation management. It's probably also one of the points. In online lessons, a lot of things are possible, but there are also limitations, and to be very clear about what's possible, what can be expected and what not, what you can do and what your students should do in the learning program. This is also something I would say is quite important.
From my point of view, I think that my experience is that the personal contact is important. You know, that you also, of course, if you get a student, take care of them well, then the word will be spread. You know, if you are a good teacher and you have someone that are very happy with what you do, they can tell others, and you can also ask them to recommend you, of course, you know. So I think that's one way to go. And then, of course, like I know that chess.com also have this kind of advertisement that you can make as a coach. So I guess all these pages, what they offer you, if you get into their systems, what you can do is that you can sell yourself through their pages. That's one possibility. But from my experience, actually, personal contacts is a good thing, you know, to work them through Facebook or from your mailing list, and you know, to promote yourself in this way. This is something I think is important, you know. Okay, so now we come to next share experiences. But before that, actually, I had some questions connected to this with selling yourself, and not the least also this with payment. And I have some questions here. What is the cost of normally for, you know, what different range do we have when it comes to payment to someone who gives one-to-one lessons or gives group lessons and so on?
I think that maybe could be a good start is there in actually in all the platforms which have coaches, you can see the fees which they're asking, and then you can compare yourself a little bit to their range. I mean, for example, Lichess, they offering all kinds of title players with all kinds of experiences. You see what kind of prices they charge. And then you can compare yourself a little bit in the market where you're situated. And then you can just determine your price. I would say in general, it's always very important also not to compare too much yourself. Just believe what you feel that you're worth, and then work for it. I mean, in the end, it's your student who should decide if it's expensive or not, if it values the money or not. And in that case, I always pay most of the time attention to my student. I try to understand what are the needs. And then you understand that needs, of course, they also understand that you have your spendings and everything, and that well, you need to
come into one thing that I think is important. First of all, we all know that there are very different prices in different parts of Europe. So, for example, where I live and you live in Holland and in Sweden, it's, you know, this is one price level that we have to be able to give lessons like this, that we cannot compete with countries with you know, maybe if you take Europe, maybe Eastern Europe has got a little bit different price setting, and not the least if you move outside Europe, there will also be a big differences. So it's a little bit like Job says, you have to find out what is possible for you. The second thing I think is important is also that you should see what you do as like a package, like a program, so that the student will feel that they are unique. Not only to give them online training for one session for 1 hour, but actually you have a follow-up, you have like something that they feel that you do, what you do is actually for them individually. This can be, of course, this is normally easy when you do one-to-one training, that you look at their games, you analyze their games, you give them exercises that are connected to the mistakes that they do. But also on group level, I think this is important, to have something that they feel that it's not only this training, but actually you have a follow-up, an idea on how they can make progress at home, so they feel that you support them all the way through. This is my experience.
I have two interesting questions, which I think it's interesting. Comparing to private lessons and online lessons, do you use the same price? I don't know. What about you, Jesper? Do you?
Actually, normally what I do is that I calculate quite a lot the travel, you know, because, for example, now I work all over Europe. And then, of course, what is not included if I do, for example, a camp or something, it is always the travel, you know, the time it takes to go there. That makes the difference. So in that sense, I can make it less expensive if I do it online. For sure, that could be done.
Yeah, I mean, when I have to travel, that's a different thing. But if, for example, I give lessons at home at a chessboard face to face, or I give them online, I always see it's the same amount of time. So it's just, for me, the time is always the same. So I charge normally the same. And I just see the differences. When you do it online, you're a little bit more efficient. So that's the good thing. The good thing when you're in personal contacts and you sit next to each other, then you get free coffee, cookie, and whatever, just the personal touch. And that's the advantage of that one. And therefore, you need to travel. So I see it as the student can choose which form they like more, or which is more to their liking. Another question, which is always very important, is preparation. I always think that everything what is on your side, you need to include in your price. I wouldn't say that you charge for preparation. Just make the price such that you can do all your preparation in the whatever way. It doesn't matter if it's included buying a computer, installing the programs and anything, or just the chess position itself. Just don't bother your students with how you build the price. Just make the price in such that you can make your living out of it and make a nice business.
Yes, I think that when you are asked how much you charge for a lesson, people do not expect you to include the time that you prepare for these lessons. They want everything to be included. That comes also to exercises afterwards. What happens to me sometimes is that I can sell a full package. You know, I say, I give you lessons, I give you some of my videos, I give you exercises. It would be like a full package for you, and this is what I charge for, not only for these lessons. This is a way to show that you are worth a little bit higher price, maybe, than if you don't have this kind of a package idea.
Also, the difference I make is when people have technical questions, how to solve the exercises or something, then I'm explaining, for example, if white or black is to move, or what's the aim of the exercises. But when it comes to checking their homework or something, this is just working time, because and that's also something But if, of course, they can't make the exercises at home or something, this I will never charge, because I see it is part of the way of the training. But of course, everybody can make their own, well, unique package or product on service, how you wish to do it.
I have some questions here, Job, also. If you can recommend some books, you know, that could be this contribution to your lessons, what do you use for that? Do you have any?
Well, I mean, in Holland, we are very, how to say, we like very much the method of step-by-steps or stepping stone method. And that's something, it's very thoroughly, it's very extensive, very systematic. So that's something I definitely could recommend if you're working with kids or even with adults who just like to make exercise and improve in a systematic way. I use really a lot of other books as well. Depends on the topic. I have to say that most of the books are never written how I use them. So most of the time I have an idea on what how I want to improve skills and how I want to do it. And I just take positions from where I see it useful. And I also find this one of the most difficult things with writing books is that it's very difficult to understand where your student is at that moment, what he needs to make the next step to the next improvement. And that's the reason why I always think is that whenever you have a book, always think about that the book should be adjusted to the position of your student, where he is at that moment.
I also think there is one very important thing for me also, because I have some questions about Startbahn method and I have these questions about books to recommend and so on. What I think is important to understand is, if you go back to this, what I said about the SMART method, my experience is that normally the problem for chess trainers is the variety, to find a way to teach in different ways. And not the least when it comes to exercises, that means that, and exercise as you do, as you go along, what I try to do is that I have some favorite books that I use and I pick stuff from them to get this variety, because normally a chess book is written in one way with one goal. Also the Startbahn method, like you said, is very much step by step like that. But sometimes you want to do something completely different. Maybe you want to study, maybe you want to have a group exercise or something. So what you should do is to find, I would say, several really good books on different topics and different content. So you have the possibilities to pick out the grains of gold to use when you teach yourself. But normally the basic thing should be just like Job said, step-by-step method, where they have positions that take you from one step to next step, and you build up your knowledge. Some books that I know that a lot of trainers are using is these books by Artur Yusupov. This Beyond the Basics and so on. He has made, I think it's 9 or 12 books with very, very good exercises, and I find them very suitable for trainers when they teach. This is actually, this is from my point of view, the basic things when I do talent developing work, you know.
Yes, there are several questions about online platforms for kids and for schools. And also, well, I think that that's a little bit the last questions which we will have. I think that all kinds of questions about the SMART method or the step-by-step method or Startbahn method, that maybe we can make some email or something, and if they have questions about one of those methods, they can write us emails. I think that's the easiest, because it's a little bit out of the scope for today.
Yes, there is no doubt. We will write down a summary. You will get this webinar sent to you as well, recorded, so you can see it again if you like. And we also will give you links, I think, to these different kind of pages and platforms and so on that we are talking about, so you can look for yourself. And no doubt that Job and I, we are ready to take questions. If there is anything specific that we can help you with, we are more than delighted to try to answer them as good as we can. Should we take the next slide here? Because I had something more. Share your experience. Is there anyone who wants to tell us something that we have forgotten, or if you have a good trick or something, good page that we have not mentioned that you lack, that would be great, you know. Okay. Yes. Yeah, actually, from my point of view, this is, I saw that I get some comment on the work that I have done. From my point of view, and this is something I really would like to give to you, and I even though I have not been training with you, Job, yet, but maybe you will give me some lessons one day. Anyway, what is important for me is to give children the love of chess. You as a teacher, you as a trainer should give them and give them this love, encouragement, so they continue to work on their own. That is my main purpose when I do training, actually, because the work they should do on their own. And this is so interesting for me, also when I meet the top players of the world. What is so striking when you meet them is the love of the game. You know, they cannot stop themselves for looking at chess. And if you have this drift when you do chess training, then you have won a lot, I would say. So I find that very, very important to give them these inspiring lessons. Even though it's through the net, try to make them love chess. This is one of the most important goals that you have, I think.
Yeah, I fully cannot agree more. This is, I also think that in everything what I'm showing, I cannot show my house, but already when, for example, they're coming in my house, I have all kinds of chess pieces. Even if they hang up their coats, it's made from chess pieces. And I think that the what you should try to show them, what chess can offer them, why it's so fun, why it can show you how you develop. Because what I always find very interesting about chess is that it shows us a fixed world where you can see your thinking very straight, because we have more or less an objective game. So it means that everything what's a little bit different from this game is your own influence. And you get a very good insight in the way you're thinking, the way you're solving, what you're good at, what are maybe your vulnerable sides. And I mean, this is all kinds of things you also can give back to children or to adults. And I think this is the best gift we get from the game. And I understand that there are a lot of things also with online lessons. I think there are a lot of platforms and well, I think we saw them already before in the slides. But I think that in the end, it's always most important is how you present it to them and why you make it clear why this website will help them, much more than which website you use. Try to let them understand how it will improve their games, how they can make better moves. So always make the connection with their games. And I would say that's probably much more important than whatever question, about which platform you're using. Yeah.
So, okay, I have one question here, and this is, of course, some questions here. It's not, of course, it is like this. It's more difficult, I think, to use the computer in a way with very young children.
Yeah.
You know, it's more challenging because normally when you work with very young children, you need to have these breaks, you need to move and so on. But if you are inventive, you know, you can do these kind of things and you can have these breaks. You can say, you know, for example, what I do sometimes is that I have cards that they have to take a card. And on this card, it says some physical movement that they must do every 20 minutes, just to have a break, so they move and so on. And then this, of course, you can do also online. You can say, now it's time for you to, like I said, run around the house 2 times and come back again. It could be like walk around the house like a crab. I have all these kind of small tricks to make them up and running, so they get fresh again when they come back to the computer. That could be done as well. But I would say that one difference, I think, is that to work on the computer, you cannot do it in the same way as you do it in real life for such a long time.
Yes.
I think my experience is that it's better to have shorter periods working than, like, for example, a full weekend camp. It will be difficult in front of a screen, I think. Then you need this variety that you can have in real life situations. So more breaks in a way, shorter, shorter sessions. That is one advice that I would like to give.
Actually, when you give lessons to longer groups, I mean, when the lessons last longer, I also advise them to have a chessboard next to their screen, so they really can look to the chessboard again to feel and touch the pieces. And of course, when they found some solutions, they can come back and just move them on the screen again. So I think this is also one of the things which is maybe a little bit off the topic, but I mean, when we are thinking about playing longer games, because now everybody's just playing Blitz for the first time because, well, I mean, we don't know what to do, but if we are thinking that maybe in the next time there won't be any chess tournaments and events, I mean, we need our students to play serious chess still when things will get to normal again. So also I think in that way, I'm really advising all my students to use normal chess boards, think over like a normal game, even if you're playing maybe 10 or 50 minutes, try to play them with a real board and then make the moves online when you're playing, so you have the real feel of the chess pieces still. That's also one thing I can advise.
Okay, so finally, have you got any more questions? Should we continue with anything else? Anything, please? What do you say? We have some people. Please write down in the chat, because you will be muted. My experience is that when you have such a large groups and so on, it's easier if you write down your questions and then we discuss them, Job and I. So please write down your questions. Then we will bring them up.
And one question was about history, and of course,
yes.
I love to incline all kinds of things. I mean, I think this is also one way how you can show that you're just passionate. You find it important that how the game, where it comes from, what kind of players were active or important in chess. You can also show them maybe some small video in the beginning of the lesson. This is also kind of fun. I do quite often. For example, I had one of the endgames, Rook and Bishop against Rook, for example. Then I'm showing one blitz game between Carlsen and Peter Sweetler. I showed them online. Then we took the game, let's say on ChessBase, and then we were analyzing them from the theory. So of course, online and digital, there's so many options where you can make things much more fun. And I would say that digital, there are definitely more options, but of course we also limit it. So just try and find those options.
Yes. Okay, so we have, of course, we have some more questions there. And one suggestion is, could you give us suggestions of great books? Of course, we could do that. It could be included in the mail that we send out, just some recommendations. But normally, I think that these specialists that we have on books, chess books, and normally they are very good at picking out the best books for you if you identify what you need. And for training sessions or for the age and so on, they can normally pick out the best books. And we have some other questions here. Can you use the board editor under tools to give lessons?
I would say that use the studies. The studies is more or less what you prepare in advance. The board editor is just a little bit when you want them quickly to adapt.
Yes, and I get a question here as well about this with the stories and to make this variety. And normally when I teach smaller children, you know, I do a lot of things surrounding the chess, not the least with anecdotes about chess and so on. But this is actually one thing that it makes it a little bit more difficult on the net. On the other hand, what you can do is that there are great chess videos that you can use, you know, if you want them to be inspired and so on. Maybe not as you teach, but not the least, you can support them with that afterwards. That is a good one to do, to show them, here you have a link to an interesting program. Here you have a nice video, chess video, Gary's game or something like that. Jerry's game that could be like a prize-winning animation movie about chess. These kind of things, of course, you can use to inspire them.
Yeah. the correct tool online.
You have some more questions?
Yeah, I'm trying to read some of them.
Yes.
I'm sorry if we forget some of your questions in
Yes.
advance. I think that how much time they should play online, I think it's very important. I always say that 20% of the time they can just freely do whatever they want, and 80% I try more or less to agree with my students on how they will make a more systematic way of training. I always find it very important that they have their free choice and they can do whatever they want. But what I notice very much when they're playing fast chess is that they don't check their moves. And we know that chess is about accuracy, and this is something very important. So in playing a lot of blitz, you automate a lot of habits. And as long as the child is not perfect yet in what they know, they shouldn't automate it yet. And that's one of the things why I'm really modest and concerned, and also have my discussions with my students and kids not to play so many blitz games while we are learning. When we feel that we're ready crossed a certain phase and something is really they conquered quite well, then of course we can automate a little bit with blitz. But in the beginning, you should be very modest with it.
So I think it's time for us to make a summary of today. First of all, be professional. If we are going to charge for what we do, we need to be professional in all ways. It means preparation, technically, content, and not the least afterwards. And what you should do, of course, is to promote chess, because chess is a growing market. Not the least, I think that these Corona times have shown that there is a great need of a developing game like chess can be, not only to play these other kind of fighting games and so on. A lot of parents that I talk to, they say that chess can really be something, and they really want the child to work with chess instead of these other games. And also for adults that now are at home, we have a great chance to take the market on the net. And I hope that what you have got today have helped you a little bit. And I hope to keep in touch with you. We will send you an email later on, maybe tomorrow, I guess. Joop and I needs to discuss a little bit what should be part. We send it to you with some suggestions on pages to move to and a summary of what we have done today. And included into that mail will be a recording of this webinar that we have had today. And yeah, I think that was that, Joop.
Yes, I hope everybody enjoyed this show and our webinar. Please also, if you feel that some of your questions are not answered, please email us or just another way, contact us, and we are more than happy to help you out.
That's it.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.